G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to the weekly roundup. It is Friday, February the 9th, 2024, and as always, plenty going on in the world of boxing. We've just had a big fight on, it was a Thursday night in the States, Friday here in Australia. I'll get to that in a minute. Timo, Lopez and Jermaine Ortiz I'm talking about. We'll get to that in a sec. We'll start with the Aussie news for starters, and Justice Huni will be on the March 8 card in Saudi Arabia. That's Anthony Joshua, Francis Ngannou fight. So Huni 8-0 will face Kevin Lorina, who's 30 wins and 2 losses. So a good test for Justice. That's going to be on DAZN on a massive card, which is at this stage the biggest heavyweight event of the year after the Fury and USyk drama of last week. So a really good opportunity for Justice Huni to make his mark, showcase what he's got to the world, and hopefully we'll see him, like his stablemate Jai Pataya, get some opportunities later in the year in some big fights. Now, Justice, his last fight was back in October last year with that 10-round decision over Andrew Tabiti. Kevin Lorina, on the other hand, is coming off a 12-round decision over Senad Gashi. That was in November last year. Only the one loss, the 2 losses, as I said, but one of those losses notably was to Daniel Dubois. That was in December 2022 when he was stopped in 3 rounds. So a good test for Justice. Looking forward to seeing how he goes on the big stage in Saudi Arabia. And as I said, there's so many opportunities for him down the track. He's an exciting heavyweight. Won't say he's in the same mould as Jai Pataya, but same work rate, same mindset, same trainer, of course. So, should be a good opportunity for Justice Huni. Another Aussie fighter that's been a little bit forgotten about that I've seen is back on the world scene is Blake Caparello. Now, he hasn't fought, he did fight, last June in Thailand. He had a second round knockout, but hasn't had a notable fight since March 2021 when he lost a 10-round decision to Faris Chevalier. So he's going to be back against Simone Fedeli, I think that's how you pronounce it, in Huntington, New York on February the 23rd. So haven't seen Blake for a while, so great to see him back. I'm not quite sure if this is just a one-off or he's actually going to continue his career. And as I just said before, his recent record has been very inactive, just the one fight in the last couple of years. So hope he's back. He's always had some great talent, Blake Caparello, and maybe exited the sport a little too early. And let's hope he can get back on track with a win over Simone Fedeli. And let's see what happens later in the year if he happens to get by that one. That's on the Star Boxing card, by the way. So not a big card still, but Star Boxing still very well known in the state of New York. So big news this week that hit was the possibility that Liam Parro could be next in line to fight vsriel Matias for his IBF 140-pound title. Now, Liam Parro, 24-0, Matias, 20-1. They're talking about maybe DAZN in June or on DAZN in June or July. So a massive opportunity for Liam Parro. Of course, he did have that aborted opportunity at Regis Prograis last year. He had to pull out injured, and of course Prograis went on to fight Devin Haney after that. So I'm really happy for Liam Parro. He's going to get another opportunity, hopefully, to win one of those belts. I think Matias would maybe be the weaker out of all the champions. That's arguable, of course. There's some other ones in there, of course, Rolly Romero and Haney, of course, in there as well. And Lopez, of course. So, we'll see what Liam Parro's got. Hopefully, he can get that opportunity and bring that IBF 140-pound title home. Now, on to the world scene. As I mentioned at the start, Teofimo Lopez fought Jermaine Ortiz. It's just finished in the last sort of half an hour as I'm doing this recording. He defended his WBO 140-pound title with a highly controversial 12-round decision over Ortiz. Now, here in Australia, we didn't get to see the fight. I haven't watched the highlights or the full fight, for that matter, on YouTube yet, but I will. But I wanted to get this out as quick as possible, so I've been waiting for the results to come through. Had to watch a few watch-alongs on this fight. The official scores were 117-111. 115, 113 times 2 in favour of Lopez. Now, the common sort of consensus amongst all the experts out there, if you want to call them, or the boxing fans and analysis out there, is that Ortiz did enough to win. Now, again, I haven't watched the fight, so I don't know the particulars of it and my verdict. But by all accounts, Jermaine Ortiz did enough to win. Apparently, he did a fair bit of backing up and retreating, which might have played into Lopez's hands, but all the same, the consensus seems to be that Jermaine Ortiz was ripped off. He drops to 17, 3-1. Teofimo Lopez is 20-1. On the undercard, Shawn Davis had a 6-round stoppage of former 2-time world champion Jose Pedraza. Shawn Davis 10-0. Pedraza drops to 29-6-1. That was at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. So I can't wait to watch the replay of it. Fox Sports, you got to pull your socks up here in Australia. Can't believe that we couldn't get the fight here in Australia. Top Rank are normally played on ESPN here on Fox Sports, but for some reason it wasn't on. So not good enough for Fox Sports. Last weekend in Las Vegas, Conor Benn moved to 23-0 with a 12-round decision over Peter Dobson, who dropped to 16-1. That was a 12-round decision at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. The score was 119, 109 times 2, 108, 110. Wasn't quite sure what to make it. I did do a more in-depth sort of analysis of this fight on Talking Boxing last week. Look, I don't think it was an overly impressive performance from Conor Benn. I think he was sort of exposed a little bit by pretty passive Peter Dobson. Was okay skill-wise, had his moments during the fight, but Conor Benn didn't seem to have the pop and power in his punches. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Before that, he'd been on a real long KO streak, and that was obviously halted here against Dobson. So I'm not quite sure what to make of it. Dobson was pretty awkward, pretty defensive-minded. It's really hard sometimes to look good when your opponent doesn't engage, which is a little bit of this in this fight here. But Conor Benn, afterwards, it was all the social media buzz, the Gervonta Davis thing. Him and Gervonta Davis exchanged lots of pleasantries on, is it X, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it was. And there's talk that they might fight in April or May. I'm not sure what to make of that fight. Conor Benn is a 147-pound fighter. Gervonta Tank Davis is a 135-pound fighter. I know he fought Garcia at the 136 catchweight. But I'm just not sure why Gervonta Davis will be entertaining this fight when he's got so many big fights at the 135 to 140-pound limit. He's obviously taken care of Garcia already, but he's got Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez at 140. He's got Lomachenko, maybe Kambosos, we'll see, at 135, maybe Shakur Stevenson. So plenty of big fights around those weights. So I'm not sure why he would want to go up to 147 and fight a solid 147, by the way, who can be dangerous in Conor Benn, when Conor Benn really hasn't done a lot to earn that fight in the first place, if you ask me. But anyway, I'm sure lots of money. Maybe it's the Eddie Hearn factor. Maybe they think they can get a massive payday for Tank Davis to go to England and fight Conor Benn. But that's still not a given anyway, because, of course, Conor Benn's had his last 2 fights in Vegas because he's not allowed to fight in England at this stage because of the issues he's had with the drug testing. So all I can say is over Tank Davis is, when is he going to actually pencil in a fight? He hasn't fought since April last year. And at this stage, no fight has been negotiated or confirmed or anything like that. There's only been sort of talk. I'm just hoping we don't see Gervonta Davis's prime sort of wasted away in social media wars and fighting once a year. I know they make massive money these days, but it would be a real shame if he falls into the category of fighting once every 12 to 18 months and gets a bit picky and choosy about who he fights. Of course, in Saudi Arabia, they offered him, there was talk of offering him massive money to fight Devin Haney. End of the day, he's a prize fighter. Why not take the biggest fights? I understand it's all about the zero these days. But if I was him, I'd be taking the Haney fight in Saudi Arabia and maybe looking at if Kambosos and Haney, Lomachenko and Kambosos, of course, fight in May. Maybe look at the winner of that fight. Shakur Stevenson, he's been looking for a big fight to come out of retirement. Maybe that's it. But, it's a little bit complexing, that situation at the moment of Tank Davis. I hope we get some good news about him in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. Just going back over the Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk circus, there has been a penalty put in place, a $10 million penalty. Of course, the date, I should have mentioned that first, has been postponed to May 18. I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Tyson Fury got on social media. I can't remember, it was some sort of podcast or something that he got on with the Sheik or His Excellency or whatever he's called these days, with Alexander Usyk and his manager, lots of toing and froing there, which is to be expected. But May 18 has been mentioned as the date, or it is the date. And that $10 million penalty is looking to be imposed. If someone does pull out with any really good excuse, the $10 million penalty will go to the opponent, I think it is, which probably just means it's one person, and that's to USyk. I can't see him pulling out of the fight. I did feel for him a little bit that he'd been away from his family, probably a bit like Fury, of course, been away from his family, missed the birth of his daughter, and of course missed his birthday, Christmas, and New Year as well. But that's the sport they're in, and sacrifices have to be made. So I'm not that stressed about that. But this guy's been mucked around enough. Let's hope that May 18 sticks, and we get that Fury-Usyk fight on that date. Now, just still speaking of Tyson Fury, he did actually say on his social media as well, if there's been talk that he might retire and some recommendations that he retire. He says the exact opposite. He says he has at least 5 fights left in him. He's talking about Usyk ×2, Anthony Joshua ×2, and then the rematch against Francis Ngannou at some stage. So at least 5 fights there. So we're going to be part of the Tyson Fury circus, it looks like, for at least the next 2, maybe 3 years. But if he's serious, that's great. But let's just hope we get Tyson Fury in the ring. I just can't believe, looking at a lot of the social media feedback and YouTube and all the different formats that we view news these days, that the amount of people that have turned on Tyson Fury. This is a guy that was so revered and respected and loved by most boxing fans, especially after probably the 3rd Wilder fight. That was probably at his peak. But since then, it's been one circus after another, one event after another. And I just think the trust factor of Tyson Fury seems to have gone. And the latest episode with his Usyk thing has just tipped a few people over the edge, I think. And as I said, I just can't believe the amount of vitriol coming at Tyson Fury from people that wouldn't have necessarily said anything like that less than 6 to 12 months ago. I think he copped a fair bit first for fighting Ngannou instead of Joshua or Usyk, and now he's talking about 5 more fights and all the rest of the stuff that he goes on with. So Tyson, hopefully you get your act together. I know it's always a bit of a roller coaster with Tyson. He's obviously got some issues outside the ring as well as inside. So let's hope the best of Tyson Fury rolls up and we get that fight on May 18 in Saudi Arabia. Now, speaking of Saudi Arabia, we have another super fight on the horizon. This time it's Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev for the undisputed 175-pound title. It has been confirmed that it will take place on June the 1st. And apparently on the undercard will be the 5 versus 5 Matchroom and Queensberry. And the great news is that it's going to be on free-to-air TV. So there'll be no pay-per-view. And I really welcome this decision. And that's a credit to all involved, especially the Sheikh in Saudi Arabia, or His Excellency. I'm not sure what to call him. But either way, he's doing great things for boxing. And let's face it, as much as us boxing fans would love to see, or can't wait to see this fight and love the matchup as a whole. The facts are that to maybe the casual fans, it's not a big fight, and it'll be a really hard sell to put on pay-per-view. So I really welcome that decision by the Saudis and, of course, Top Rank and whoever else is involved, Matchroom, everyone that's involved with that. But as I said, free on ESPN, so great news for boxing fans. June 1st, Saudi Arabia, we get an undisputed 175-pound champion against the 2 Russians. So I can't wait for that one. A little bit of extra news. John Ryder, the Gorilla, has retired after his loss to Jaime Munguia. He retires with a record of 32-7 with 18 knockouts. Turned pro in 2010. Had some really good fights against the likes of Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, Danny Jacobs, Canelo Alvarez, and of course Munguia. Did win the WBA interim super middleweight title in 2019 over Bilal Akaway, and also the WBO interim super middleweight title against Zach Parker in 2022, but couldn't get across the line as far as a legitimate world title goes. So I feel for him, but one of those guys who always fought the best, wasn't afraid to test himself and jump in. And I also do feel for him on that hand. The fight with Callum Smith, I thought he won that fight. And unfortunately, that was his really best chance to win a world title. And he didn't get across the line. But all the best to John Ryder in retirement. And just on a finishing note here, a couple of jokes of the week. First of all, Shakur Stevenson, still retired, but just waiting for a big fight to happen. So he's just putting it out there. some big fights out there, but he's still retired in the meantime. So Shakur, make up your mind. Are you in or are you out? Is this another Teofimo Lopez sort of thing where you're retired but you're not retired? And let's not play the game, Shakur. Just pick a fight. I know you're frustrated, but you're too good a fighter to retire at this stage of your career and your age. So, mate, just say you're frustrated and you just want a big fight. Don't come out and say that you're still retired, but you are waiting for that elusive big fight that you've been looking for. And I didn't think we could probably top old Shakur Stevenson this week, but we have, because Jake Paul has come out and said that he is the best cruiserweight in the world, which would be massive news to our own Jai Apataya. He said he didn't actually, I don't think from what I saw, he didn't actually say he would beat Opataya, but he said in his opinion, he is the best cruiserweight in the world, which obviously implies that he would beat Jai Apataya. And I did have a little bit of a rant on Instagram about that yesterday. Not really usually my style, I will say, but the nerve of this guy. Remember, this is a guy that was beaten by Tommy Fury, a reality star. I know he's semi-famous because of his brother or half-brother or whatever he is, but he was beaten by Tommy Fury, who, with all due respect to Tommy Fury and his family, is not a legitimate or not an elite world-class fighter. I think he's been open about the fact that he's a YouTuber or YouTube fighter or reality fighter, whatever you might want to call it, but not necessarily a serious fighter at this stage. He's in it for the money, and good luck to him. It's a very, very dangerous sport. So he's been open about that. Well, he was still able to beat Jake Paul. And I know that he did have a win over a legitimate boxer, let's say, in his last outing, but I think we can all say there definitely smelled something fishy about that fight, and I, for one, can't wait until him and people like him exit the sport, and we can get back to hopefully the sport that we've all grown up with and we love. I must admit, I strongly doubt it. I think it's just going to get worse. We're getting more and more football fights and all this sort of stuff, and YouTuber fights and reality TV and all these sort of things, or these sorts of things. I understand there's big money in it, but for fight fans like myself, and I'm sure you guys out there, it's very, very hard to swallow. So, guys, that's it for this week's weekly roundup. Apologies if I've left anything out, but that seems to be all the things happening this week. So until next week, I hope you have a great weekend watching the fights or whatever else you're doing, and we'll catch you next time.